Hi, thanks so much for having me. I am Shruti Malani Krishnan, co-founder and CEO of Powr Of You and Pi Insights. Today I'm just going to speak a little bit about how we're helping brands and publishers use first-hand data that's consented to enhance experiences. So the title, as it says, Beyond GDPR, so we're almost a year into GDPR coming into effect, and we've seen a lot of things come about when it comes to compliance, non-compliance and getting charged for that, but also new models and new businesses that have come about, and other old models kind of going out of fashion. I mean, just this week we saw things about Oracle kind of exiting the space with AdThis, given the consent requirements GDPR puts in place. It's not really possible for Oracle to actually continue this business in Europe anymore. And this is not uncommon still. I mean, a year in and we're still seeing a lot of impact on the advertising and marketing space. And that's really where we started looking at client challenges around being able to access consented data, but also being able to access real behavior data rather than just relying on tags someone may have spun up and so on. So the things that we kept hearing from brands and publishers about was about, one, they either just don't know how to access consented data or they have no access because that's just not how they've functioned in the past, or it just takes too long to collect this type of data or it's too expensive. And lastly, once they have the data, what do they do with it? So how do they actually then underpin that with the rest of their business decisions? Because data can be quite expansive in itself. So that's really where Pi Insights, my company, comes in, where we've built technology that gives you access to permissioned opt-in data based on people's actual behavior, be it their mobile usage or their browsing behavior and so on. And when it comes to timing, we've actually developed instant data and analytics products that help you instantly actually understand your audience, validate, and kind of move forward with enriching your data and so on. And the last bit around, we've developed extensive analytics capabilities to help you then plug in this data into your own systems and be able to personalize user experiences. So if you can learn more about what your audience is doing, not just what they're doing on your site, on your app, or where you can reach them, but really what they're doing in their day-to-day lives, so you can actually understand their motivations, their life stage, and their profile better. With consented data, you can actually start looking at enriching those profiles, whether that's CRM or CDP data, actually validating those profiles with live data, and not just understanding your audience, but in publishers' case, monetizing it better, because you can, with facts, say how you work on getting that data and actually how you utilize it to better profile your audiences. As Powr Of You and Pi Insights, we've developed 3 specific products. Snapshot, which gives you an instant view into a user's past behavior, up to 90 days of browsing history instantly, as well as things around being able to qualify that behavior, so instantly validating. Rather than assuming someone is a football fan, you can now actually look at their data on their device without having to exchange any data, but just a flag to say, they're a big fan of football, or they kind of are interested in football, but rather would talk about basketball, for example. And the last bit being technology to actually monitor that usage ongoing with user consent. All of these things actually plug into client systems as you need, and as the data is consented, you can actually track that consent provided and be able to personalize those experiences. A great example of this would be if you wanted to actually use this data to do better marketing and have an understanding of your audience, but also your competitors' audiences, so you can start comparing what really is truly unique about your audience, or use that data to then personalize their experience when they come read content on your website, or deal with specific product recommendations and so on. So we're Pi Insights. Please come let me know if you're interested in talking further about how we do what we do. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you. So I guess my question for you is, like, what's the journey been like in creating this?
I think we've evolved. I mean, pre-GDPR and post-GDPR is a different world in terms of the types of conversations we're having. So mainly around consent before we even, really started talking as an industry about GDPR. We started 5 years ago when we first asked the question to people around, what do you think about the word data? Just the word data. Mm-hmm. The first usual response was, my credit card details were stolen, and it's a big world change, right? So it's not just beyond little things that you might think about, but really about the life that we're living in this digital world. And with GDPR, we've just come front stage, and it's much more easy conversation to have with clients, with consumers, because all of our data is opted in and with consent explicitly. So we actually designed those experiences to be very transparent. And that now plays a big part in how we have these conversations and how people are approaching us rather than us pushing that message.
Trust.
Yeah.
Very important. It's something that we have spoken about. Well, it's been on the agenda here at Advertising Week for 2 or 3 years now. You have stuff around bot fraud, for example, viewability, kinds of stuff. What do you think as an industry advertising needs to do to improve its image a little bit around this area?
I think the steps that we're taking around consent is a big step already, whether it was by default because GDPR came into place or because we all opted in.
Forcing the hand, I think, more than anything.
But it's a great thing that's happened because it's almost asked us to think about, what data is it that we actually need rather than just collecting for the sake of it. It's not helping anyone. It's also asked us to think about, well, how are we using this, right? That's the fundamentals behind GDPR. Mm-hmm. Because if you're thinking how you're using it, you're now plugging into business decisions more so than you ever did. Mm-hmm. So you might have had that data for all this time, but you may not have been using it as much because you just weren't aware of collecting all that information in one place. So in terms of internally, I think it's been a great boost to innovation within companies, and we've seen that in the types of conversations we're having. Externally, in terms of improving our image, I mean, it will take time. I mean, there has been a lot of damage that's been done, but people are being very cognizant of, well, yeah, we kind of let it happen as well. So now it's about reversing that track and actually putting trust up front and transparency up front in everything you do, whether that's asking for data or asking for data to do something. That to do something part is so important, and that's what GDPR came into effect with. And I think with that, trust will build over time.
I think a lot of people need to change the way that they are behaving at the moment, definitely.
I think, as I was saying, there are still businesses going out of Europe now, almost a year in, still reeling from what GDPR has come into effect with. So there is a lot of change that's still to happen, but, being charged a fee because you didn't meet some requirements is just one thing. It's actually about thinking, well, how do I need to rethink my business? That's what's really happening now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great way to end, and thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.